Hi, I'm Mike Sloga. In this video I'll be fabricating some Craftsman-style tapered columns. They're very simple to make. Now, here's an example of a tapered column that really sets off the porch overhang nicely. The column I need to build has to be 40 inches tall. It's made out of a 1x12, so the base is at 11 inches and the top tapers to 7 inches. Before I owned a track saw, I'd make a jig similar to this. I'd cut down my stock to rough dimension on my table saw. Then I'd use this jig to run each side through my saw to taper it. It's a pretty good technique when you have a lot of pieces to cut. I sent the drawing to the client first, and it was approved for fabrication. However, for this job, I'm going to make a mock-up first because I feel the scale of the column might not be just quite right. It's kind of funny how things look a little different when they go from paper to real life. I'll be using my track saw to cut the pieces. It's really the easiest way for me to do this in my shop. Now, the first thing I start off with is a scale plywood pattern of the column. I'll use some leftovers from my last project to accomplish this. By making a full-size pattern, I can assemble it and show the client a full-scale model similar to this. Before I spend too much time in fabrication, this way, if changes need to be made, I'm going to be doing it with rough, less expensive material. So the first thing I'll do is I'll lay out the front and the side of the tapered column separately. I'll cut them and then assemble them. So let's get to the layout. Now to start, I'll mark off my column on my plywood sheet. So mark 11 inches at the base, for the base of the column. Now we measure up 40 inches. This will be the top of our column. Square across. If the column were square, it would be 11 inches, but we're going to deduct 2 inches from either side to make that 2-inch taper. That gives us 7 inches up at the top. So we just need to connect these two lines to the two lines at the bottom, and that'll create the taper for the face of the column. Now we need to lay out the inset piece, or the side pieces. For the sides of the column, they need to be 1.5 inches smaller, so we mark 9.5. That's 11 minus 1.5. So that's one side of the column. There's the other side. Come up to 40 inches. The full width of the column would be 9.5. I need to deduct 2 inches to get the same 2-inch taper on it. Got a nice straight edge here, and I'm going to connect from the outside of the panel. There's my 2-inch taper for the face piece. Come over to the 11 and go to the 7 mark. So this is the front. This will be the side panel. It's going to be 1.5 inches smaller than the face. And we just need to connect those just from the outside to the 2-inch mark. I'll call this the inset. So we just need to get our track saw now, set that up, and we'll cut these pieces. Now to set up for my cut, I'll use the 1400 millimeter rail. That's 55 inches. Now just place the edge of the splinter guard right over the line you want to cut. Set the depth to 7/8 with the FS scale. That scale shows that you have the track on there. The depth is done. Need to check it? Pull the track to the side, drop it down, and you can see it'll clear. Using dust extraction makes my shop stay a lot cleaner. So I'll hook that up as well as my power cord. I keep a dedicated line for shop use. I like having my power cord and dust extraction connected. Now wear your safety glasses and hearing protection when using the saw. Line the track up with a cut line and drop your secondary splinter guard. It prevents tear out on the veneer wood, and I find it helps collect more of the sawdust. We'll make a cut for both pieces. Now I'll screw these together and show the profile to the client before I make the final version. So here's my full-scale model. By bringing this to the job, I can get the client to sign off on the design, then I can go back and fabricate the finished product. Once approved, I'll disassemble the rough column, and place the pattern over my finished material, and then trace it on my finished wood, making an exact duplicate. Now, to speed up the cutting process, you can stack 2 layers of finished material and cut them together. But since the saw has an electronic speed control, it will adjust the motor to keep up with the thicker material. Now, it's always a good safety practice to unplug the saw while making adjustments. To adjust the saw for 2 layers of material, set the depth adjustment to 1 7/8 inches. Set the track over the scribe line of the workpiece. Wear your safety gear, your eye and hearing protection, plug in the saw and the dust extraction hose. Now begin your cut. Slow is good. Let the saw do the work. I'm going to use a butt joint to assemble my column. Although nailing or screwing would be acceptable, I'm going to use dominoes to join my pieces together. A domino is a mortise and tenon joint. The tenons, or the dominoes, slip into a groove made by the domino joiner. After adjusting the depth of the wood, I'll mark the location of each domino joint. Then I'll use the tool to cut a mortise into the side of the inset piece . and a corresponding mortise just slightly wider on the back of the face. I can now use a waterproof glue to join these pieces together. I'll make sure that I leave the back unglued so that I can go to the job site and remove it. This way it'll slip around the 4x4 post. Once to the job site, waterproof glue, a couple of tack nails or screws, and the column will be together. And one last detail I want to do is take a flush cutting bit with a small V-groove on it. By lining the V-groove up with the joint in the wood, I'll make the joint look very deliberate and flush cut any irregularity on the face of the board. By flipping the piece and grooving the face, now it looks really sharp. If you prefer a flat surface, the V-groove will give you a nice joint to fill, making it a lot stronger. I learned that from Frank Caputo from JLC Live, and that's a pretty cool detail. Thanks, Frank. Well, it's that simple. The track saw makes my life a lot easier. Layout and cutting time is reduced, especially for the smaller jobs or pieces that are just too big to run through a portable table saw easily. I think this is a keeper. Thanks for watching.